Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Northern Maple. The Nova Scotia controversy continues. I have spent the last 2 weeks losing myself in many a rabbit hole, from authoritarian proclamations to wildfires occurring in potentially strategic regions, to property owners being strong-armed by politicians, the use of glyphosates to prevent wildfires, and even trying to find out if there's any truth that whether or not Tim Houston, the Premier of Nova Scotia, is involved or has been involved with the WF. What's true, what isn't, and what questions are left unanswered. That's what we'll be diving in today. So click that subscribe button and let's begin. The Nova Scotia wildfire controversy has sparked intense discussion. In case you missed my last 2 episodes, here's a quick summary of the situation. Despite an exceptionally dry summer, Nova Scotia's wildfires were well contained until a blaze in Annapolis County spiraled out of control on August 10th. The remarkable efforts of the province's firefighters and then all the departments involved, despite limited resources and inadequate government support, are nothing short of extraordinary. Canadian culture has been wildly attacked for the last 10 years. Born and raised Canadians are even saying Canada has no real culture. However, I would argue that our firefighters are showing us right now what Canadian culture is. We have men and women who have made the decision to work hard and work in dangerous jobs, not for their own benefit, but for the benefit of their neighbors. Our government might want us to forget who we are by encouraging us to snitch on our neighbor. And yes, I'm referring to the snitch line the government put in place for Nova Scotians to rat out their neighbors who dare go into the woods. It is absolutely grotesque. Our history, although not perfect, but whose history is that of pioneers who crossed the ocean to start a new life through hardship, grit, and community, not through government handouts or universal basic income. They worked hard for the future, not for the present. And that is what our firefighters are showing the nation right now. To be Canadian is to show up for your neighbors, even when it's hard, because it's the right thing to do. It's one thing to say elbows up, it's another to live it. And unlike our government, our firefighters are living it. So if you're to walk away with anything from today's episode, let it be that. Admire our people, not our government. Okay, back to the Nova Scotia controversy recap though. Due to the high fire risks, the Premier of Nova Scotia, Tim Houston, initiated 2 proclamations. The first, a burn ban, which no one is disputing as a proper measure for the situation. The second, the travel ban. No one is to enter the woods unless they want to receive a fine just under $30,000. That's when people started raising eyebrows and questioning whether or not it tramples all over our charter rights and freedoms. Now, let's look at the facts, because the numbers tell a very different story than that of the government. Most wildfires in Nova Scotia, they're caused by arson, human-set fires, plain and simple. If you check the province's own wildfire stats, arson's the runaway leader in starting blazes. Hiking, walking, a casual stroll through the forest, not even a blip on the radar. They occur so rarely that they don't even get their own category. But you know what does? Smoking. Cigarettes, of all things, who would have guessed it? You would think a burn ban would zero in on the most common source of open flames, tossing a cigarette butt into dry grass. But no, not a peep about it in the ban. But go for a hike and bam, $30,000 fine. If you can make that make sense, I'm all ears. Every argument I've seen in support of this ban is pure emotion and absurd scenarios that aren't even in the realm of possibilities. I haven't heard a single rational case for it. Nothing. And the world's noticing this isn't just local chatter. Nova Scotia's leadership is getting roasted globally. It even landed on the Joe Rogan's podcast. Love him or hate him, his podcast is one of the most, if not the most popular podcasts in the world. And the sheer absurdity of this travel ban got his attention. Why? Because walking in the woods doesn't start fires. Banning citizens from nature with a heavy-handed authoritarian move reflecting that of communistic China. That is what has sparked outrage. That's my quick rundown. If you want the full scoop, go check out episodes 19 and 20. I dive deep into the details there. All right, let's keep this conversation moving. What has happened since my last episode? Well, this is why it took me 2 weeks or nearly 2 weeks to make this episode. The amount of research and fact checking continues to be never ending on this topic. In fact, I can't even cover nearly as much as I wanted to in this one episode because new information keeps popping up. But we have to start somewhere, so let's begin with an update on Jeff Evely and his peaceful protests against these absurd measures. Everly received the $28,000 plus fine on August 8th. Now remember, it's a $25,000 fine plus victim surcharges and taxes. I know I keep repeating myself, but it's important that we highlight the fact that the government keeps finding additional ways to tax the population. It's national poverty through taxation. But I need to reel it in or else I will get off topic and we will never get through the coverage on Nova Scotia. Jeff Everly, a veteran who served for 20 years, intentionally took this fine to fight it in court. Receiving the fine was just his first step, but the second step is significantly more expensive than the fine itself. Legal fees could range from $50,000 to well over $100,000. Fortunately, by the grace of God, the Justice Center of Constitutional Freedoms, the JCCF, a Canadian charity dedicated to defending charter rights, has stepped in to represent Jeff for free. Founded in 2010, the JCCF focuses on protecting freedoms like expression, mobility, and equality. Now, I would argue that they wouldn't offer to represent him if his case didn't have merit. But that's just my personal take, and I'm not a lawyer. But I'm pretty sure it's a fair assumption. On August 20th, the JCCF filed a notice for judicial review with the Nova Scotia Supreme Court, challenging the fine and the travel ban's constitutionality under Section 7 of the Charter, which is the legal rights. There is no court date as of yet, but I will keep you posted on Jeff's fight for our charter rights. Now, let's tackle our first big question. Are these wildfires happening in areas that have mining and or development restrictions? And before we start looking into this question, I would like to mention that I didn't uncover all of this information on my own. So many people, friends, followers, everyone has been sharing their findings online and have been sending me so much information. So I want to give a big thank you to everyone sharing their information with me and the public. You are getting information out there, and that's important. And it's also very heartening to see Nova Scotians and people around the world digging into this. Let's begin with the Susie's Lake wildfire from August 12th, which burned roughly 15 hectares. The map I'm about to share was sourced from the Nova Scotia Fire Emergency Info Facebook page. The red rectangle shows the fire's approximate location. The area, rich with wilderness trails, follows strict leave no trace ethics and has been eyed for an urban park. Now, the next piece of information I'm about to share with you is from someone online who discovered that you can look up development requests. Excellent. Here, you will see that 2 developers submitted proposals for residential developments in the Susie Lakes area. But the areas they want to develop in are classified as I3 zones. Now, this is a screenshot of the suburban site-specific requests from July 2023, and these requests were still active in 2024. I haven't been able to find any newer information though, but keep this one in mind. What is an I3 zone? Well, according to the Halifax's land use bylaws, I3 zones permitted uses include industrial or commercial enterprises, public parks, cannabis production facilities, but billboards, adult entertainment, and amusement centers are banned, and no development outside these uses is allowed. So you might know this already, but I'm not a developer, and I have no idea how these things work. However, If I were a developer, one of the first things I would do prior to putting in a development request in a specific area would be to check the zoning classification of said area that I'm interested in. That just seems like common sense, no? Well, apparently this is not common practice among developers because we have two, not one, two, that clearly didn't check the zoning classification. Or perhaps they did and don't care because they know a workaround. I have no idea. What we do know is that two developers put in a request to build residential units in a zone that does not allow such developments, and they put in that request at least twice. Let's get back to the Susie's Lake fire though. Look at the updated map comparing the wildfire location to the requested development sites. Interesting? A wildfire took place near the wooded area that is being protected. Was this just a coincidence? I don't know. How was the fire started? Not by a hiker, we know that for a fact. It was reported that the fire was started due to a fire pit within a homeless encampment. So my question is this. It was known that there was a homeless encampment in that location. So why weren't proper precautions taken? The province will fine a hiker for going into the woods despite the severely low risk of a fire starting as a direct result of that action, but they won't take preventive measures where a known homeless encampment is located. Why? In the past they moved homeless encampments from within the city because of safety risks. In fact, Halifax officials reported over 110 fire-related incidences in the past year, including uncontrolled fires and propane cylinder explosions from these encampments. So why was this specific homeless encampment allowed to stay near the woods despite the known fire risks? We have at least two developers repeatedly submitting the same request to build residential units in areas that do not permit such developments due to the woods, due to nature. We have a homeless encampment located in the same area with an established high risk of fires. Then the woods that are preventing development catch on fire. Is this entire situation merely a coincidence? At this point of my investigation, all I have is speculation, and speculation isn't facts. But it leads one to ask more questions. So on to our next topic, the Long Lake wildfire in Annapolis County. This wildfire, located near West Dalhousie, has grown an estimated 8,806 hectares and remains out of control with evacuations affecting over 100 homes. Here's a map showing the location of the wildfire. You can see the area outlined in red that indicates the approximate location of the wildfire. For those unfamiliar with this area, Annapolis County is one of the most beautiful areas in Nova Scotia. It's where the province's main agriculture is located. There are vineyards, wineries, orchards, and so many other local businesses. This wildfire is reported to be due to a lightning strike. Two big conversations have been circulating on social media about this. The first, there is mining potential in this area and the government wants the land cleared. And second, as per the Weather Modification Information Act, and yes, you heard me correctly, Canada has an act that covers weather modification. Now, if weather modification wasn't real, why would the government create such an act? Here's what the act states. Weather modification activities include any actions designed or intended to produce, by physical or chemical means, changes in the composition or dynamics of the atmosphere for the purpose of increasing, decreasing, or redistributing precipitation, decreasing or suppressing hail or lightning, or dissipating fog or cloud. Let me be clear. If it wasn't possible to influence the weather, Canada wouldn't need to have this act. So the fact that the country has the act is confirmation in and of itself that we can influence the weather. And in the definition we just read, we learned that weather modification includes increasing, decreasing, or redistributing precipitation. which would lead one to believe that we have found a way to make it rain. Yet Nova Scotians are not allowed to enter the woods because of how dry their summer has been. And part of the province's most valuable region is burning. Wouldn't making it rain be helpful? The definition also includes suppressing lightning. Interesting. So in theory, that lightning strike could have been prevented based on the act that our country wrote. If we can make it rain, why hasn't the government made it rain? If we can suppress lightning, why didn't the government suppress the lightning? These are fair questions. No? I think so. The Act never explicitly says we have the technology to modify the weather, but it's a reasonable conclusion that the mere existence of the Act confirms it is possible. And there is a lot more evidence than just this act that weather modification has been going on for years. But we have to put a pin in that one and leave it for another time because we have to ask another question. Do any of these wildfires coincide with areas that the government wants to mine? Now, that's an interesting question. If you recall, on June 12th, Premier Houston held a press conference where he addressed the fact that no bids were received for Nova Scotia's uranium exploration proposals. The uranium mining ban in the province was lifted on March 25th of this year when the Nova Scotia legislation passed Bill 6, repealing the Uranium Exploration and Mining Prohibition Act, which was established in 2009 primarily due to public health and environmental concerns. So where exactly has uranium been located in Nova Scotia? Well, let's take a look at the map I found on the Mining Association of Nova Scotia. Now, if we add the approximate location of the Long Lake wildfire to this map, this is what we get. Based on this map, the Long Lake wildfire area is not explicitly confirmed as rich in uranium, but its proximity to the East Dalhousie exploration site, which is 10 to 15 kilometers away, suggests there might be uranium in this region. The Nova Scotia government has identified a 64-hectare site in East Dalhousie with known uranium deposits, but no recent findings confirm their extent or economic viability, and no industry bids have been received for exploration yet. The province does, however, plan to conduct its own geological study, indicating interest but not immediate richness. So, although the wildfire is not located directly above known uranium site, there is potential for it in the region that just evacuated over 100 homes. We have two wildfires occurring in regions that have a lot of financial potential. The first is a protected park, and the second is an area with over 100 homes. Is it a coincidence that these areas are now burnt? I would like to believe that it is, but when you look at what happened in Maui, where a 15-minute city proposal was faced with public resistance and then a wildfire scorched the same region, one can't help but ask the question, are these fires a mere coincidence, or is this a nefarious agenda at play? Whether it be for mining or to build 15-minute cities, we don't know. What questions do we have left unanswered? Well, is the government intentionally orchestrating wildfires in order to clear up land to generate more revenue for the province? This required me to create a timeline of events, so stay tuned for that on Thursday. Second, can uranium mining be environmentally safe? Third, what are glyphosates? Why are they being used? And how does that impact the environment, or how do they impact the environment? And fourth, is there a connection between 15-minute cities, the WF, and Tim Houston? This is one of my favorite ones. We know 15-minute cities or smart cities are on the way in Canada. The government announced the first round of winners of the Smart Cities Challenge in 2009, which involved Montreal, Nunavut, Guelph, and Bridgewater. We know that 15-minute cities is part of the WF plan, so why not ask the question if Tim Houston has any involvement with the WF? I haven't found any evidence so far, but I'm not done looking. Okay, that was a big one. That's all for today, everyone. Thanks for watching, and I hope the information was helpful. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.